Hello, beautiful souls. Namaste. I hope you are doing well. Today I would like to bring you a message about narcissism. Now, I have attempted to do this message several times, and usually I didn't have enough time, or I was trying to rush the points, or I was too distracted, and I didn't feel that they ended up being quality messages. And this message is very important because we are living in a time where narcissism is running rampant. Now, narcissist has kind of become a buzzword, and now when people deal with anyone that's kind of a jerk, they automatically label them a narcissist, and there is a reason to that, and part of that reason is because narcissism is a spectrum. We all have narcissistic traits. It's part of the human ego. You can't escape it. However, how far on that spectrum you are depends a lot on how you were raised, the people you were raised around, your self-awareness, and other factors. I wanted to talk about it today because there is an underlying spiritual part of this that a lot of people don't understand. Now, again, as with most of my messages, if not all of them, this is simply my opinion about this subject matter. My opinion is based on personal experience, divine downloads, and practical knowledge. When the father of my youngest dumped me, and it was a very unhealthy, messed up situation that we were in, I want to preface this on the off chance that him or his family is watching. This is not meant to degrade him as a person. This is just to bring understanding. This is also why I never use names. And you're going to see why I'm putting that little preface in there. Oh, there's my kids. They're doing field day at school. It's cute. Just passed their school on the way to work, so probably didn't even see me. I went by so fast. Anyways, I had been in many relationships, and I had been married, and I've been the person to dump someone, and I've been dumped. However, there was something very different about this situation, and it was very frustrating, and I didn't understand what I was feeling and why I was feeling it. I became obsessive, and I was also hooked on this idea of the twin flame journey, that a friend had introduced me to that idea. And there was just a lot going around that situation, and I ended up going to counseling to try to give myself some help as to why I was struggling so bad with this. Okay, I just had to check my audio because it was flashing a warning sign. It's probably because I'm driving and there's a lot of feedback noise from the car, so anyways, I checked myself into counseling, and that particular counselor didn't really know much about narcissism, and I laugh about it now. It wasn't so funny then, but basically she told me the reason I was struggling was because I was just upset that he dumped me. And God bless her heart, she's very new to being a counselor, like just got her degree, didn't have a whole lot of real world experience with counseling. I did take that into consideration. I really kind of meditated on that and thought, well, gosh, maybe that is what it is. But I knew that wasn't what it was, because I had the cognitive understanding of what was happening in the situation, and I didn't I didn't have a problem with what was happening. I just didn't understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And since I wasn't getting the answers from therapy, I did what a lot of people do, is I went online and I started researching, and I came across the idea of narcissism being a cause, and specifically covert narcissism. My initial understanding of narcissism was, I think, what probably a lot of people initially think narcissists are, just conceited people. And that didn't really fit the description for this person. But covert narcissism did. And all the way down to, I think the winner chicken dinner moment for me was when it was describing what it feels like to be dumped by a narcissist, because literally it was the same exact verbiage I had used with the counselor. I said, I felt like I was thrown away like a piece of trash. And upon researching covert narcissism, that was literally the verbiage that was used. It's like, when they dump you, you will feel like a used piece of garbage. And so I knew I had found the answers that I was looking for. Now, the answers were helpful because in researching it, it helped me to understand why I was experiencing what I was experiencing. It helped me to understand the kind of psychopathy of the person I was dealing with. But then I needed to heal from that. And the healing process has been long and grueling. And he has not been a part of that process, ironically. He left our lives, it would have been back in 2020, I think, is the last time I spoke to him. I think that sounds right. So this healing journey has all just been me going within. I want to wind this back around to the importance of the spiritual aspect of narcissism. I came to this conclusion really through meditation and talking to God, talking to the universe. Like, why is this a problem? Why are so many people experiencing this? The spirit of narcissism is a spirit. It's a spiritual entity. We give it the label of, oh, that's so funny. Right as I was talking about this, a little ad flashed on my phone that said evil. It's interesting. So this is an entity that latches on to human beings that are wounded and traumatized. Oftentimes, narcissists were raised around other narcissistic people. Now, I'm saying narcissist, but keep in mind, it is a spectrum. Everybody falls on the spectrum of narcissism to some extent because we have a human ego. And with that comes narcissistic traits. And some narcissism is healthy. And even being a little bit higher on the narcissism spectrum is not necessarily a bad thing, as many jobs kind of require you to be on that level. The problem, obviously, is when it comes to your interpersonal relationships, when it's interfering with how you interact with your loved ones and your friends and co-workers and things like that, right? So we all fall on the spectrum to some point. And in my healing journey, one of the first things, and I am going to wrap it back around the spiritual aspect, but one of the first things that God kind of pointed out to me, I would say probably even before he showed me about covert narcissism, was my own narcissistic traits. It wasn't necessarily brought to me with the word narcissist, but he started revealing to me some of my own toxic traits, and I started working on those, and then I was brought to that term covert narcissist and able to understand what that is. So, as a human being, most human beings have gone through some kind of wounding or trauma. It's very, I would venture to say I've met very few people that have had like really good, solid childhoods with like no trauma and no issues, you know, growing up. Like they just had a strong family unit. They had strong, healthy parents. You know, there was nothing traumatizing. They're not wounded. That's actually pretty rare. I mean, amazingly lucky for those people, but pretty rare. So most people have experienced some kind of trauma or wounding. And the spirit of narcissism will latch on to people, especially people with heavy mother and father wounding. In other words, these are people who their parents were wounded, and so they were not able to provide good, strong, healthy, unconditional love to their children. And so because of that, they had these traits. And so the child therefore took on those traits as well, because that's what they were being modeled, okay? You can also get narcissism by proxy if you're in an unhealthy relationship with someone who's narcissistic and you've been around that a long time, and you're not as self-aware of that. It can start to rub off on you, and you can start to exhibit those traits as well. So there's many layers to this narcissist thing, okay? But these entities will latch on to people, usually from a very young age, and they will feed off those wounding energies. And those wounding energies keep you in a constant state of fear of rejection, fear of being hurt again, fear of loving and then being neglected or thrown away. So it keeps you in this constant state of survival mode. And the older the person gets, and the more they struggle in their interpersonal relationships, the stronger those traits get. So it manifests. Having this spiritual attachment tends to, and what you end up seeing is the physical manifestations and the mental manifestations of this behavior issues that we label as narcissism. Now, all that being said, I'm going to say something that's going to be controversial. As a society, we really like having a villain to blame. We like victimhood. And when you are someone who speaks against this line of logic, you kind of get attacked. And hello, that's me. I'm the problem, it's me. Because I've always been that person to play devil's advocate, to be able to see things from both sides of the coin. And in some cases, that's because I've been on both sides of a coin. I don't really want to use this example, but I'm being prompted to. Cheating and being cheated on. I've been on both sides of that coin. And that's why I have a heart for people that are struggling on both sides of that issue. So, yeah, I know. I'm going to have to do a video about that, because I just heard that'll have to be for another discussion. So, I believe that anyone can heal. Being labeled a narcissist does not have to be a life sentence. Now, the reality is, most people who would be considered a narcissist, an actual narcissist, will never get diagnosed a narcissist, because they'll never make it to a doctor that will diagnose them. That's part of the pathology, right? So they're not gonna, first of all, they're not likely self-aware that they're acting narcissistically. They're not going to go to the doctor and be like, oh, someone told me I'm a narcissist. I don't want to be a narcissist. Let me work on that. The sad truth is many never get to that point. And even the ones that that manage to get to that point, maybe they're married and their spouse is like, we need to go to counseling. We need to fix our marriage. Part of, especially with covert narcissists, is they're very good at manipulating. They can manipulate anybody. Even if you're smart, even if you're empathic, even if you think you can read people, covert narcissists are extremely manipulative. And so that means even within a clinical setting, they might be able to dupe, the doctor, the psychologist, the psychiatrist, whoever it is you're seeing, a counselor, whatever, if the counselor doesn't know what they're looking for. And because this issue of narcissism is just now kind of blowing up and becoming an actual, big time issue, people are really having to educate themselves on this so that they can learn to recognize the signs and exercise having healthy boundaries. Because what we're discovering is a lot of the people that we're dealing with, these are people we know. These are people in our families. These are family members, friends, co-workers, and you don't necessarily want to throw these relationships away, but at the same time, you don't want to keep being a doormat for their narcissistic behavior. So I'm going to bring this back around to the fact that I believe narcissists can heal. I do not believe it is a life sentence of a diagnosis. And here's why. When you tell someone they can't heal, you take away their power. And what you essentially do is you tell them, well, it's too late for you. Oh, well, just continue being a narcissist because it's not going to matter anyways. And if that person is already dealing with a spiritual attachment, then the likelihood that they're going to be like, oh, okay, I should heal, I should get help, I should, self-reflect, that's going to disappear because you've taken away their motivation to do that. But if you say, hey, let's take the stigma away from this. And here's the thing. The reason there's such a big stigma around narcissism right now is because the people that we are considering to be narcissists, they've done a lot of damage. They've hurt a lot of people. But the one thing I always try to remind people, and it's not easy to do because when we've been hurt, we want to hold on to that hurt and we want to just sit in that victimhood and be angry because that makes us feel justified. But the one thing we have to remember in most of these situations are narcissists are hurting people. They were hurt. They were damaged. They were wounded. They're not acting out of a place of love because of what happened to them. Okay? So, compassion is really important in understanding why people do the things they do. It doesn't give them a pass. It doesn't mean they don't get to take accountability for their actions. It just means we're giving them an opportunity to recognize their humanness and say, yes, you have done these things. Yes, you've hurt people. Yes, you've made mistakes. But that doesn't mean you're not valuable. That doesn't mean you don't have worth and value and that you don't deserve another chance. Because as long as you're living on this planet, every day you wake up is another chance to do better. If you know better, you have the opportunity to do better. And the power is in your hands as to what you do with the knowledge and the information that you get. So, self-awareness is key. Now, the trick is many of these people are not gonna know they're narcissistic, right? So, when we're pointing out to someone that we think they're a narcissist, I don't think it's helpful at this point to use that word because everybody on this planet is on high alert over the word narcissist. They want to label everyone a narcissist, and honestly, according to the MSD, I think that's how you pronounce it, they have to, in order for someone to be clinically diagnosed NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, they have to check mark a whole bunch of boxes. So the likelihood that the people we're dealing with are truly narcissists, according to the DSM, it's probably pretty slim. But yes, what is highly likely is that they are highly narcissistic with the traits. I guess what I'm getting at here is the first step in people healing from this, like if you're listening to this and you might be, oh my gosh, what if I'm a narcissist? What, I went through that. The likelihood that you have NPD is like slim to none if you're already questioning it. Okay. However, what I do recommend always is a self-check-in. This process requires, complete honesty. You have to take away the judgment. You have to take away the fear. And this has to be a process with just you, yourself, and you, and no one else. Like, I mean, you can do counseling, but the inner healing, the counselor can't do that for you. The counselor can give you information and tools, but the inner healing has to be you. And self-awareness is key. And when you take away the judgment and you allow yourself to be honest with yourself about your own behaviors, your own thought patterns, that illuminates an opportunity to do some work on yourself. At that point, you can say, okay, are these traits that I'm exhibiting, are these things that I'm doing, these thought patterns or these behaviors, are they healthy? Are they hurting other people? Are they hindering myself? Am I hindering myself in any way? That's your self-awareness, right? Once you become self-aware, and a big part of that is oftentimes we become self-aware, but we have been programmed to be so judgmental and so critical that we never get past that phase of it, and we never actually do the inner healing work. We have to have compassion with ourselves. We have to have compassion with the people that we're hoping to change. You can't, now if we're talking about someone else, you can't force someone to heal. That's the trick with this. And really with anything is you can't force someone to do the work. They have to be ready. They have to see the benefit of doing the work, and they have to see that their behavior is affecting other people negatively. And that is a process that's going to be different for everybody. Not everyone is ready to admit that and work on it when you want them to. You know, that's the unfortunate part of this process. Now, the good news is when someone starts to become self-aware and do the reflection and start to recognize their own patterns, they're beginning to take their power back. They're beginning the healing process. And the good part about that is it makes it harder for the spiritual entity to hold on to their energy. The more healing work you do, the stronger you get in your own power, the weaker those entities get, because when you are healing, you are essentially transmuting the energy from fear into love. You're taking all those energies within you that you've been holding on to. You know, with narcissism, many of these people have been rejected. They have mother and father wounds. They have a fear of abandonment, things like that. As that person is healing those wounds, they're taking the energy and the emotions from that, and they're transmuting it into love and forgiveness. And once they do that, that entity can no longer hold on to that energy. They feed off the darker energy, the heavier energy. They cannot feed off the light energy. So you basically are starving your demons, in other words. And eventually, when you get strong enough, and I don't believe we're ever totally, completely healed. I think as long as we're alive, we're always working on our healing process. But once you get strong enough and you take your power back, then you can call that thing out and say, you're no longer allowed in my energy. I'm reclaiming my energy. Because now you have become completely self-aware. You've done the inner work. Now that you know better, you're doing better. That entity has nothing left to hold on to. It has to leave your energy. So, what will hold someone to a narcissistic label will be themselves and their own belief. If they believe, well, I've been diagnosed this is what I am, they can still do the work, but as long as they believe that they are a narcissist, they will hold on to that label, and that will give permission for the entity to stick around. It may not be as strong as it was, but it'll still be there. So the second part of this and the spiritual aspect is belief. You have to believe that you have power over yourself in the spiritual realm. And your power is coming from the divine. See, these entities already know all this information. It's just a matter of you becoming self-aware, or the person becoming self-aware, and taking that power back. Now, obviously taking the power back is not enough. You still have to do the inner work. You still have to heal. And that's a hard process. It's a long process, because when you're self-aware, you have to constantly catch yourself in those moments where you're having those toxic thoughts, or you're exhibiting those toxic behavior patterns. You have to police yourself, and that's not easy, but it is possible. And once you shift your belief to the fact that you can heal, I can take my power back, I can heal, I am not a label. When you say I am something, you're putting a label on yourself. Those words, I am, that is the word of God. I am. And what it implies when God says I am is that He is everything in existence. But when you put a word behind I am, you are putting a label on yourself, and you are claiming that. So if you say, boy, I'm stupid, let's say you made a mistake, you are programming yourself to believe that you are stupid. No one else is doing that but you, to yourself. So if you take a diagnosis and say, I am this, you are claiming that diagnosis as your truth. And that is very powerful in the spiritual realm. And when you do that, your thought patterns will begin to align to that belief, and your actions will align to that belief. That's why it's so important to understand your belief, your core beliefs. Sorry, that's my alarm went off. Give me a sec here. That's why it's so important to really know who you are as a divine being, know who you are as a human being, know what your core belief systems are, so that you can get in alignment, so that your thoughts will be in alignment with your actions. This is all part of the process of healing. And it's not just from narcissism. This is wait a minute. This is new. Okay. Sorry, I'm almost to work and I'm just recognizing something new here. Trippy. So, this is not obviously just for narcissism. This really goes for anything. But the reason I'm bringing out the narcissism is because what I really hope to do is educate people. You can go online and do all the research about narcissism. There is a plethora of people available online talking about narcissism, talking about narcissists. I don't need to educate you on that part of it. What I have to educate you on is the fact that we are all human beings. We are all flawed. We are all dealing with different afflictions. We all deal with entity attachments. We all have these things that we deal with. None of us are better than the other in that sense, because we are all struggling with the unseen. And what we need to do is we need to be able to look at each other through the lens of God, look at each other through the lens of compassion and understanding, so that we are giving everyone a fair chance to choose to heal. Especially when we understand that the majority of people that are narcissistic, it's from a time in their life where they had no control over their situation. If you're a child and you're being raised in that environment and you're being told certain things and you're being treated a certain way, you have no control over that, and that is molding you into the human you are as an adult. So how are we gonna, it would be like going up to a 3-year-old and calling them a raging narc. You wouldn't do that to a 3-year-old. You would understand that it's not their fault. So now, that being said, I believe as a collective, I believe in the power of prayer and thought and collectiveness. So if we as a collective can come together and decide to believe that we can cast out the spirit of narcissism through compassion and forgiveness and love, by simply believing that it can be done, believing that, yes, we recognize this is a problem on the planet right now. We recognize that something needs to be done about it. Here's what we're going to do about it. We're going to start believing that people are going to become self-aware. We're going to believe that they're going to start the healing process. We're going to believe that they're going to cast out these entities. We are choosing to believe this can and will happen en masse on this planet. Because the alternative is to believe it's not going to happen. The alternative is to believe narcissism is here to stay and there's nothing we can do about it. You can certainly choose to believe that. But remember, what your beliefs are is what your thoughts and actions will align to. If you're constantly worrying about everyone being a narcissist, how is that going to fare for you? So again, I believe this is a really important message that we all need to work on learning how to see people from a higher perspective. You know, it's very easy when we have been hurt to judge and view someone at a surface level, at a earthly level, because we are experiencing the emotions involved. You know, we've been hurt, we've been scammed, we've been lied to, we've been cheated on, we've been discarded, we've been all these things that narcissists do. And so we, as a badge of honor, we wear that and we proudly display our victimhood and say, you know, yeah, a narcissist did this to me, cheese squeeze, beep jeep. So I'm going to challenge you guys to step out of that victimhood. It's not to diminish what's happened to you. It's for you to understand it's in the past, and now it's time to heal and grow from that. And to remember that we are all human beings on this planet struggling with something. And narcissism is just another spiritual attack on mankind. But we, as a collective, can overcome that when we choose to come together, when we choose to not give in to the fear that they generate. These entities, remember, they feed off fear. So if they can keep us angry, if they can keep us sad, if they can keep us depressed, if they can keep us frustrated, they can keep us in that victimhood, then they have an eternal food source, because that's what they live and feed off of. But if we come together collectively and say, okay, this sucks what happened to me, but I get it from a higher perspective, and I'm not going to give my power over to these entities. Like I know through the power of the divine, through God, whatever you want to call that I'm stronger, and I'm not going to be a victim to these things. So I'm going to choose to believe that people can heal, that narcissists can heal. I'm choosing to believe that we're going to experience a mass awakening on this planet where people are choosing to love themselves, they're choosing to heal, they're choosing to become self-aware, they're choosing to become better human beings. I'm choosing to believe that. Okay? Whew, that was a lot, and so I'm going to have to cut this all together for the video. I hope this message makes sense to you guys. I hope that you will take it to heart. I know I've switched perspectives a lot in that, and that's never a mistake. That means someone might be listening that might be feeling that they might have narcissistic traits, and that might just be a sign for you to go within and just, you know, do some soul searching on that. This is in no way a finger pointing. This is simply an acknowledgement that we are all in this together, and the best way to heal as a planet, as a world, is to come in unison and choose to believe from a higher perspective. That's where our power comes from, okay? So I hope you all have a wonderful day. Love you so much. Namaste.